Hello everyone, welcome to Advanced Algorithm and Data Structure course, which we will be implemented using C++ language. And today is the first session, and we're going to look at the first session is about the introduction and review what you have learned on the previous term, covering on some main topics to get started with data structure advanced topics. So in this part, we are gonna look at introduction to course, and there are some rules and how we're gonna manage the class, as well as getting to know each other. And the main content in this part is we're going to review what you have learned from the previous terms, covering on the loops, functions, and some other things. And the programming language that we're going to use is C++ language, and I hope everyone is already familiar with C programming. And in C++, there is not much different. We just need to learn some different commands, and the concept are apply the same. And most commands are also likely the same. We just need to remember some structures. So here is the contents of the class. So first we're gonna introduce ourselves, and this is the first time, and everyone is not knowing each other yet, as well as myself. So first thing first, let me introduce myself. I am also a student at the ITC in the field of computer science, and I finished my Bachelor of Engineers from 2011 to 2016. And after that, I could pursue my master degree for 2 years at SIT in Thailand, which stands for Saranthon International Institute of Technology in the field of software engineering. So at the same time, while doing my master program in Thailand for 2 years, I also have some experience in teaching assistant in lab Python in SIT. Every international student, we can apply for the job opportunity if we are eligible. Just one requirement is to pass the English test first. Okay. And after coming back from my master degrees in 2018, I worked at ITC as a full-time lecturer, as well as part-time lecturers at Western University, as well as NIPTech, the old name NIPTech, and now it's become CATE. As the time is going, and there are some many projects involved at ITC, I only work as a part-time lecturer at Western University until 2020, because they are very tight schedule, so I cannot manage the time well. And here's my contact, my email, as well as the Telegram number. You can contact me, but mostly we will communicate via the Telegram groups. So feel free to ask any question if you have any. So next, we will discuss about the course descriptions covering in this course in this term. The course objective of this advanced algorithm in data structure is to provide knowledge to students on the main topic, which are advanced data structure that can be used to store information during you apply your programming. As you have learned before, there are many data types such as integer, floating numbers, character or strings, as well as the array data structure. Those data structure types are used to store information so that you can process your data inside the programming concept. As well as you implement some certain program, you may need to use the variables. So in this course, mainly we will focus on advanced topics in the data structure, including linked list, data structure, queue, stack, hash table, as you can see in this slide. So mostly, as you have learned already about the array, we know that the array has the disadvantages of using the array. It has only limited size. When we create an array, we must provide the size of the array, right? So in here it comes to the advantage of linked list, in which we can use it to store many data. It's not limited. We can store much as data that we want, because it uses dynamic memory management. But the implementation is quite also difficult. But if we follow the terms in the process, it's not really difficult. We can do it quickly. And once we're done creating the function, we can reduce it many times. Because linked list, we need to use pointer. So I think everyone maybe already learned pointer, but we will introduce again when we learn linked list. So about the course, we are divided into two parts: lecture-based class, which will provide the lecture using the video sharing, as we have already know, because due to COVID season, we cannot come to school. But we will adapt to the real situation later. And another part is about lab class, which we have the practice, and we do some exercise, as well as to have any question discussion during the class as well. And we will use C++ language. And upon the completion of this course, we targeted the student will be able to create many advanced data structure to use in the program more effectively, especially using stake, a linked list, queue, hash table, and some other data types that we can use. And last but not least, is we learn how to use C++ language. Everyone mostly already familiar with C programming, and now we can learn another language called C++, which is an extension of C. Yes, there are many features can be used by C++, and the syntax is not really hard. It's really quite the same compared to C programming. Just some certain commands we need to adapt. Okay. So here is the teaching and learning method. We will see on the lecture, which we will use blended learning, sharing video, and lab discussion and practice. We also have project and assignment and some other class activities, and I hope everyone will engage to the class and actively involved. There are some also score for that. And we also have some other evaluations, assessment, quiz, midterm, and final. And but mostly we will focus on project based. Midterm and final is just some part of the score. It really not given too high. Okay. So come to the class management, and we hope everyone is be on time. And, every class we will start to take the attendance. It could be scan the QR code or submit some links or some other method that we can use. So 5 minutes before class. So everyone, please be aware, and we hope that everyone will be on time. It can develop you better habits as well. So next thing is the cell phone. Okay, please don't enable. If you use computer, please turn off the cell phone. Just turn the sound off. That's okay. Don't need to turn off the phone the whole directly. Try not to use the phone during the class, okay? So that we can concentrate on class lecture, as well as there are some questions that you can focus on. And here's the class code that everyone can access to our classroom, Google Classroom. I think most of everyone is already joined the class. So next we talk about the tool that we're gonna use during our lab practice. Perhaps everyone have already installed some other programs such as Sublime Text, VS Visual Code, Del C++, or some other things. So in here, I'm going to use Code Blocks tool. Perhaps you already used it before. Provide a handy tool like color highlight, error debugging, code completion, so on and so forth. So you can download it from this link, codeblocks.org/download/binary. You can follow the instruction here, or you can directly go to the Google and type CodeBlock. Okay. So please download the version that is included here. It's called MinGW setup. Okay. If you download some other file, it will only download the software itself, not the compiler. So in order to run the program, we need the compiler. Okay, so you need the software as well as the compiler. So please use this one, MinGW setup. Okay. And here is the books reference. You can grab more books online and read it more in detail. Okay, next thing is to introduce the cell. So I would like to know everyone here, because this is the first time as our class. We're gonna not look much in detail to the content lecture, but we'll review it later in the following slides. So there are three important points: information and your name, where you're from, and what you want to be. Okay. So I think because we are online and we not in face to face, we can do that, or we are working on sharing content. We will skip on this part. Okay, we may introduce it later during the lab class. It's just getting to know each other. So next we come to the course. What is data structure? As you have already learned before, you use integer, you use character, you use string. Under that you can store information, like. And next you want to process that information. Either you put it into some formula, or you do some logic condition checking, or display information on screen. Yes. And mostly we apply our practice on shell, which means that we run the program and there will be a black dialog pop up. Okay, like we call it command prompt in Windows, and in Mac or Linux we call it terminal. Okay, we're not able to run with the program with user interface yet. Okay, but we can do it later. No worry, because mainly we focus on the main content, the core concept of the programming. For the UI, we can use many variety of tools that we can use to adjust, drag and drops, and then create some elements UI that we want. So structure means the set of rules that hold the data together. It's like you store the data, you put it inside a box, and then that box you can pick it, you can put it somewhere, and then you take the data out. Okay. So here is gives you a global type of data structures. You have seen some of them before. For example, array. Okay. So data structure are divided into main sections. The first one is called primitive, and the second one is non-primitive data structure. Okay. So primitive data structure referring to the basic data type that you have learned before: integer, floats, character, string, and so on. And non-primitive data structure, it also further divided into linear and non-linear. Okay. So linear is like a sum of sequence, and non-linear is not sequence. It's like a hierarchy. Okay. So in here, linear data structure, we have two types: static and dynamic as well. Okay. In static is referring to array. Okay, array you can have many elements inside, right? It is if it is an array of integer number, you can have many integer number inside the array. You just given the number on it. Okay, how many elements you want to store? Okay, just put 5, 10, or 7. Just put it there. Okay, when you create the array. Okay, and for the dynamic data types, which we will learn mostly in the beginning lectures, we will work on linked list, next, stack and queue. Okay. They are called dynamic data type. Okay, they are not limited, so you can use it to store as much as information that you want. Okay, and there are some techniques that you can use to store that by taking the advantage of using pointer. Okay, so I think everyone already using pointer. We use the array, we use the address thing, right? Okay. Okay, here we come to one thing that we come in mind when trying to solve a program or solve a problem. We think of an efficient solution, right? Okay, so select an efficient solution. We have some constraint. Okay, it's just like the factor that involved to get a better efficient solution. Okay. There are two main points here I want to focus. The first one is memory space, and the second is execution time. Okay. So a program is said to be efficient unless that you can the performance is quite well. Okay, it process it solve the problem, solve the give the solution to solve the problem, and it also take less time to execute. Okay, the performance is high, so it take less time. We try to optimize that as much as possible. Okay. And for the memory space, as you can know that whenever you use the program, you try to know that okay, the program should be lightweight so that you don't need to spend much storage. Okay, that is two main constraints that we should be focusing on. Okay. And the cost of the solution is taking the amount of resource that the solution consumes. Okay, so in here a very important point that we should be consider. Okay, so I will not talk much on that. Next, we will take a look on some parts, on the review part, which will be about loop, array, function, file, and pointer. But I think we will not have all the time to detail each of them. Okay, we'll try as much as possible anyway. Okay. I think you already learned this before, and I hope everyone can review from the previous term. Okay. So in here, what is a loop, and do you know how many types of them and how to use each of the loop? Okay. So loop is used to store the command that we can use to repeat our code, run again and again, right, until certain condition is met. Okay. So if the condition is still true, we want the code to process it again. Okay. So most of the program, they use loop, they use condition to control the flow of the program. Okay. And for the loop, how many types that we have learned before? You have for loop, while loop, right? And do while loop as well. Okay, there are three types of them. Okay. But if we learn in other programming language, for example, like Python, you may see different more types of loops that we can use, okay, for each loop or something. Okay. And the third part is to how to use each loop. Okay. I hope everyone already familiar with that. For loop, while loop, and do while loop. Okay. There are some logic that we need to be aware of. Some structure, some command. Okay, for, and then inside the for parentheses you have some initialization, next condition, and lastly is the increment, right? Increment part. Okay. So maybe I can provide you some example here. I'm gonna open the tool called code blocks, and just a quick overview on how to do the loop here. So I'm gonna create a file in here, the tool code block, review one loop. Okay. So in here I'm gonna use C programming. Okay, later on we will focus on C++ language. Okay. Include. So we have the structure, right? We have the header of the program. We have main function, as well as we can write the code inside. Okay. So maybe some of you write something like integer main, and then you return 0 here, right? But this is not used, right? You don't need to put it. It is optional, but so mostly I don't put it because we don't take the return value to be used in the program. Okay. So I just put it here to make the form more simple. So I'm gonna use a loop in order to, for example, display message, or you can also calculate some numbers, switch summation, for example. So you can use for loop for, and you have parentheses and block. This is called block, right? You have a bracket to allow that many code inside that is belong to for loop. Okay. And this is the part in for loop. We have three components, right? The first one is starting number. Okay, let's say integer n equal to 0, semicolon. Okay, and then you have condition. Okay, let's say condition is n is less than 100. Okay, I'm gonna do something. This is the increment part. Okay, this is will run before, lastly before the code run again. Okay. So let's say n equal to n plus 1. Okay, every time we want n to increment by 1. Okay, 0, 1, 2, 3 until 100. Okay, so you can say print something. Okay, you use the print command, right? Print command. So I'm gonna say using the placeholder, and then I say hello. Okay, hello. So we're gonna get the output 1 hello, 0 hello, 2 1 hello, 2 hello, 3 hello, so on and so forth until 100 hello. Okay, let's run again and again. So like until you get a new line, and then we pass a variable which is n. Okay, so n gonna be replaced in this template. Okay, as you have learned before, called printf using placeholder template. Okay, as you can see here, we write only a few codes, and then we get many line of code, right? The same, the message is repeated again, trying to display the message. And each time in the line number 7, the code is running again, the value of n is keep incremented. Okay, n is equal to n plus 1. Okay? 1, 2, 3, so on and so forth. So in this, we can also take advantage of using, for example, you want to sum the number from 0 to 100. Okay, you can, excuse me, you can do that. So let's say I have the variable set s equal to 0, and inside we can keep increment this variable s. S is equal to s plus n. Okay. So each time the loop is run, this means that s keep increment by n. Okay. So we take the value all s plus n, store back to s, and then when it run again, the variable s is latest, right? It keep update. Finally, I can display, let's say, summation from 0 to 100 equal to template, and then we plus the variable s, which is summation. Okay, this is quite simple using for loop. Okay, we got this. Summation from 0 to 100 is 50 and 50. That's correct. This is one loop called for loop. Okay, another loop is called while loop. You can choose like while, and then you provide condition inside this parenthesis, and you have the bracket, right? Okay. So in here, let's say we have integer x equal to 10, and the condition is x greater than 0. Okay. Every time x is greater than 0, this loop is gonna run. Okay. So the first time x is 10, if x is greater than 0, okay, it's true. So code inside while loop is run. Okay. So let's say I want to print something. Running in while loop. Okay, running in while loop. So I'm gonna slash n to get a new line. Running in while loops. Okay, so I'm gonna pass some variable which is x. So x here gonna 10, 9, 8, 7, right? So if we put like this code is gonna be an infinite loop, because every time our code is the condition is always true. Okay, so now we got some error here, like because in C programming the syntax is very restricted. Okay, we must provide the semicolon. Okay, so I put semicolon back here on line 12. So make sure that you can inspect the error code here. In case that you cannot find this type, okay, simply go to view, click perspective, and then you click delete here, delete current. It's gonna return back to the default. Okay, you can see the build message. So I'm gonna run it again. We're gonna see this while loop. Our program is not stopping; it's running, right? As you can see here, it's running. Okay, because it is in while loop, so it keep running that. Okay? Always the value of x is 10. That's why we still keep running. So while loop is easy to write, but if you put the wrong condition or the wrong logic, it's gonna be an infinite loop run forever. Okay? So I'm gonna say x equal to x minus 1. Each time the loop run again, x is decrement by 1. Okay, it keep reducing. Okay, until it reach 0. Right? When it reach 0, okay, each condition now is true. No, because x is equal to 0. So we stop there. Okay. So we run it again. Okay, I forgot semicolon again, as you can see on the error build message. Okay, so we got that. Okay, that's correct. Okay. So there one important point to be noticed, to remark in the tool here. As you can see, there's two buttons, right? The blue one and the yellow with blue. Okay, this is run and this is build and run. So each time that you modify the code, You must build and run, otherwise it will keep the oldest, right? The oldest version. Okay, let's say I change it to 100. Okay. If I click the button run here without build, it means that it will take the code, the old one, okay, the previous run, which is 10, right? So you will get 10, 9, 8 until 0, right? Because the code is not latest build, okay? So every time I recommend that everyone should click on this, okay? If you may not be confused, will make you confusing. Okay? So click on that, we will get the latest version compiled on the source code. Okay? That's it. Okay, I will not go further that. You can review more yourself. This is just how to use loops, for and while loop. We come back to slide a little bit more. And one more thing is about the array. Okay, so I think everyone is also used to learn about the array before. Array is the types that can consist of many elements inside, right? And those elements, the data type must be the same. Okay, for example, array of integer, there are 5 elements, so there are 5 variables inside that array, which are integers number. We can use to store 5 variables, which are integer. We declare only one name, but we can use 5 of them. Okay, that's how we can use the array. In the array, there are many types: 1 dimension, 2 dimension, so on and so forth, 3 or 4, based on the situation that we use. But if we be getting more complex and more complex, for the matrix, you may use 2D array, 2-dimensional array. You have row and columns, right? But in 3D, you must put 3-dimension array. Okay. So we'll come back a little bit here on how you use the array. Okay. So you have the something like, let's say, integer x, integer score. Let's say a score. Then you pass this symbol, which is the bracket, and you put 10. This means that you're gonna have 10 elements in this array. So those are integer number. So you can store, let's say, 10 variables that are integer. So in this you can, so mostly when we use array, we should use for loop or use any while loop to access to each element in this array, right? So that we can use them, all of them. Okay? And sometimes we just use some of them. Okay, you can access it, like say score, bracket, and then it starts from 0. Okay, 0. This is the first element. Okay, because index in the array starts from 0. But some other programming, for example, MATLAB, it starts from 1. Okay, start from 1. Okay. So let's say I'm gonna do something here. We have print and scan, right? So let's say I have for loops, sure, k, start from 0 until k less than 10. Okay, last element is 9. Okay. So k equal to k plus 1, and you can just say k plus plus. It's the same, k equal to k plus 1, right? It's a shorthand of using increment. Okay. So next, you can put inside here. Let's say I have the enter number, and then it pass some number here. Let's say k plus 1. In order that we can get the sequence number, right, showing to the user. K plus 1. So we're gonna say you're gonna get enter number 1, enter number 2, so on and so forth. And next you can scan it. Okay, to store the variable, you scan command in C. So we have the placeholder, which is below percentage %d, which is integer number. You have the symbols ampersand with the variable names, and the element which is accessing the index in the bracket. You can pass k, right? Okay. So each time the loop is run, you're trying to access the array elements k of 0, k of 1, k of 2, right? First element, second, third, so on, right? Okay. This is how you can store them, and finally you can display it out, right? Do it the same way. Okay, from 0, okay, less than 10. You can use other variables, okay, just to trying to display it. So I'm gonna say percentage %d, okay, percentage %d, and then try to have the tape, let's say tape /t, or you can just a space, is okay, right? So I'm gonna pass the variable array here, score, and then we pass the element. Okay, which is score 0, score 1 until score 9. You're gonna get the result on that. So let's run this. Okay. So this the first result from for loop and while loop, and next we're trying to run the loop here. Okay, running while loop because we do not slash end, right? So it's gonna continue the line here. So our code now is running at line 20, okay, 21 is getting the result. Okay. So let's say put some number. Let's say 2, 4, 6, 8, 1, 3. You can put any number that you prefer. Okay, just put random number here. Okay, last one is 100. So this means that these numbers are stored inside the array, right? We're trying to, every time we input that, we scan it to inside to store in the score, right? So now all those variables can be accessed using this variable. Okay? So just in the array, what we, as we can see here, we must provide the position index, right? Start from 0. And this is the the ampersand symbol that we need to use in scan because we need to access to the address to store this number into, and when we access it back, no need to use ampersand. That is the how the syntax in C programming work, but in C++ you will get it to see it more simple than that. We don't need like ampersand percentage d and something very simple. You just use C in and C out. Okay? We will see it later. Okay?